Hello boys and girls, I'm finally back with Reading Scold, and we're now starting on chapter 10. My name, Nami Erlanger. The bad news, Lena said she didn't have to have the hots for Darley or Grant Tubman, at least not until the infection in his tongue stud cleared up. The good news, she didn't come out and say she was interested in Zach. But how could she not be? He was by far the coolest guy at C Average, totally adorable, and the mastermind behind making Cap Anderson the 8th grader president. Although I have to admit, I thought stealing his shoes went a little bit too far. Zach didn't really agree. Come on, what kind of person sits in front of his locker with his eyes shut barefoot and mumbling in some foreign language? He's practically begging for it. I consoled myself with the fact that they weren't even shoes. They were made out of some kind of dried leaves. Technically, we did Cap a favor, because the next day he showed up in real sneakers. We're bringing him into the 21st century, Zach insisted. His eyes looked so sincere and so blue that I just had to go along with it. I couldn't help myself. I kept on writing love notes from Loreley Lumpley to slip in Cap's locker. Dear Capricorn, I waited all day and was heartbroken when you didn't come. You must have thought I meant storeroom B 3376 of the middle door. Silly me. I was in the storeroom B 376 of the high school. There's no storeroom B 376 at the middle school. But I guess you already know that. Please, please, please give me another chance. Meet me at... The rest was in a giant tomato soup stain. I don't know about Cap, driven me crazy. Another note contained directions to a small courtyard off of the library. There was only one door and it locked as soon as it closed behind you. Poor Cap spent 2 hours in there, until a custodian found him and set him free. I felt pretty awful about it. When my hands were tired, I was with Zach. I like Zach. We watched from a spot on the roof, expecting him to go berserk. He never did. He called for help a few times, but mostly spent the day in the lotus position, with his sneakers off, meditating. I could sense that Zach was a little frustrated that Cat wasn't putting on more of a show. Why isn't he yelling or crying or at least banging on the windows, begging for rescue? To be honest, I couldn't explain it either. Cap was weird, but there was more to him to that. There was something inside him that nobody else understood. Something mysterious and strong. Not muscle or fighting. Kind of strength that gave him self-control to meditate instead of falling apart, or to ignore other people's thought and find him meaning in a dead bird. I couldn't say that to Zach, of course, so I tried to be supportive. Look on the bright side, I offered. From our vantage point on the roof, he didn't go nuts, but he was down there a really long time. Zach was not consoled. What's the point of pranking someone if the prank's on you as much as it's on him? He had a point. Captain Anderson fell for every gag, hook, line, and sinker, more than a Luke Simmerd or Hugh Winkleman ever would. There was only one problem. He wasn't reacting. You could harass him, you could upset him. Even when Zach told him he was expected to plan the entire Halloween dance, he was mellow about it. Last year, that was what put Luke over the edge. Cap just said, "I've never been to a dance." He didn't refuse to do it, but he knew he wasn't going to do it. That made Zach mad. We should have hung him off the wires, not just his sandals. I only had one class with Cap, math. He never opened his mouth, yet whatever the teacher called on him, he always came up with the answer. Zach claimed that he was the dumbest kid in school, but he was pretty smart. He had no friends except maybe Hugh Winkleman, who had to be the worse than nobody. Or maybe not. Those two ate lunch every single day. It looked like Hugh did most of the talking, but that made sense. Cap was new, and surely he had questions about everything that was happening to him. He had no way of knowing that the person he was using as a guide was an even bigger outcast than he was. So as friends with Winkleman, big surprise, Zack sneered. Nobody normal would hang out with him. Stuff he does, what kid in a million years would ever want to do with him? He had a point. Meditation wasn't big in middle school. When Cap wasn't in the loudest position in front of his locker, he was usually in the music room, strumming guitar and singing to himself. Always 60s music too. I recognized the Beatles and some of the folkier stuff he heard on the classic rock stations. And every morning he was out in the schoolyard performing the slow motion dance like martial arts. Zack called it hippie ballet, but I thought it was kind of graceful and athletic. I asked Cap about it. It's Tai Chi, he explained. It develops balance through a blending of mental and physical energy. Yeah, but why are you doing here where everybody can see you? Zack demanded. Because if I do it where I live, somebody pours water on me. You could depend on that comment from Cap. It might have made sense, but only to him. The whole thing was really starting to get on Zack's nerves. I'm going to break that kid if it's the last thing I do. I had to speak up. Is this really necessary? Can't we just switch to Winkleman or something? Winkleman isn't president, Zack insisted. It's too late to go and change that. Anger didn't suit Zack. His jaw was stuck out, his skin flushed in taunt. This wasn't the future boyfriend I've always and we're 8th graders, he went on. It's supposed to be our year. Not going to give up because some hairy Sasquatch stepped through a time warp from the 60s. He went on to see Lena. She was the authority when it came to spreading the word. Zack had in mind amounted to calling the entire 8th grader down on Cap. He was not to walk through a crowded hall without his feet being kicked out from under him. Cafeteria line was always to become an obstacle course for tripping legs. He would be a living, breathing bullseye for spitballs, rubber bands, apple cores, and flying soup. It was open season on 8th grade president, especially on school bus, where there were no teachers. The only rule is that anything goes. Cap's reaction? He flowed through it all like he didn't even notice anything was messing with him. No, it went beyond that. He didn't notice anybody was messing with him. He wasn't happy, but he didn't look unhappy either. And here's the part I never met anyone, certainly not Zack. Deep down, I was rooting for Cap to stick it back in all of our faces. For sure we deserved it, especially me, because I was starting to know better. Alright, I'm gonna stop here. This is chapter 11. We're gonna start next. It's nice to be back, guys. I really enjoy doing this. I'll see you I'll do another reading probably tomorrow or another day. Just put in the comments whether you guys want more. And I'll see you all next time.